gentlemen, welcome to the Payoff Pitch. My name is Joey Olberding, and I will be your host for all things sports. So on this Wednesday, September 11th, I want to talk about the NFL. Last week, if you were able to tune in, I talked about my predictions for the season. And hey, right after that, we had the first actual week of football. And you know what week one of football is all about. Really bold predictions that don't pan out in the slightest. And I like to think that that's my forte, so I'm going to be talking about every single game out of the 16 games played, and just my general thoughts on each one of them. So I'm going to start in Chicago, where the first game of the NFL season was also the worst game of the NFL season so far. Green Bay, Chicago, absolutely horrible game, especially for Thursday Night Football. Green Bay beat Chicago 10-3, but not really an inspired effort by Aaron Rodgers, to put it lightly. The amazing thing about this game to me personally is the fact that it was on Thursday Night Football. You know, it was a big deal. The first game of the NFL season, and, you know, whole preseason, whole offseason to get things prepared. And I get that Aaron Rodgers didn't play at all during the preseason, but I still expected something. And this is all keeping in mind that Green Bay won the game. But Chicago looked absolutely awful too. Now, people are just going to ignore it, say it was a battle of defenses. And while Chicago's defense did do well and Green Bay's defense did do well too, Aaron Rodgers, he only put up 10 points. That's not what you want from... That's not what you expect from Aaron Rodgers. And Mitch Trubisky showed once again why he is... Well, in my opinion, he's a lot like Blake Bortles, in the fact that he's mostly bad, but sometimes is really good, and that their respective cities love them. Well, that wasn't really the case for Blake Bortles, but it's a stretch either way. But yeah, that's what I think of that game. Now, let's go to another pretty bad game, but hey, with more points. Buffalo and New Jersey. I think that the Jets are an interesting team. Hey, I like the new uniforms. You did good with those. Good job to New York. Well, New York Jets. But Buffalo did show that they're the better team, even without LaShawn McCoy. But a lot like with the Green Bay-Chicago game, neither team showed that they were good at all. Both showed that they were pretty bad, in fact, and were probably going to be bad for the rest of the year. But hey, we'll see about that fact. It could be that Buffalo turns out to be really good. They find LaShawn McCoy too, except without all the drama, and everything's good. But even though this was just a 1-point victory and it came down to the very end for Buffalo, I do not have confidence in the Bills to be able to do much of anything else, which is very similar to my thoughts on Green Bay. Now, what is not similar to my thoughts on Green Bay and Buffalo is the Los Angeles Rams. Now, let me blast you with a hot take. I think that the Los Angeles Rams are very good at football, but it also showed that the Carolina Panthers also are pretty good at football. Now, the Rams didn't have their greatest game ever, but Jared Goff did do super well in this game. And really everybody on offense contributed. They scored a solid 30 points, which is exactly what you want. Carolina did well too, though. Cam Newton didn't have the greatest performance of his life, but he did have a pretty solid one. You know, they have like a pretty new receiving corps. It's not really the same that they've had for the past 5 or so years. While the Rams, theirs is also pretty new, but the difference is that the Rams has a bunch of established names, while the Panthers don't really. Their most established receiver is Greg Olsen, who's 35? Mostly young guys, mostly inexperienced guys receiving for Carolina. But Carolina did well, but the Rams showed why they are the better football team and will be in contention for Super Bowl this year. Now, the Vikings beat Atlanta, and Atlanta did not have a good showing. I feel like Atlanta is one of those teams that sometimes they are the best team in the league. It really depends on the year or the week or even just the point in the game. Sometimes they feel on par with the Rams, on par with the Patriots, or even better than the Patriots in the Super Bowl's case. But then they just come crashing down. Matt Ryan won MVP a few years ago. Julio Jones is the most well-paid wide receiver in the league. And yet, somehow, this Atlanta offense, which should be so scary, only managed to put up 12 points. Now, granted, that was against the Vikings, and the Vikings are an extremely talented defensive team, and really an extremely talented team in general. And the Vikings in this game basically ran their way into a victory. Dalvin Cook took up most of the ball, and he did really well with it. Kirk Cousins is best when, he has a running back to give the ball to. And Kirk Cousins is a solid enough quarterback anyway, but Minnesota really showed why they, in my opinion, are the favorites to win the NFC North in this game. Now, another team that I think is the favorite, except in the NFC East, is the Philadelphia Eagles. And they were going up against the Washington Redskins in this one. And the Redskins are a team that a lot of people are very down on. They say, 30th best team in the league, really not good. And I agree with them. I do not think the Redskins are good whatsoever. In fact, aside from Haskins, I don't think I can name a single player on that team. But the Eagles are different. The Eagles have the sort of chemistry that I feel like the Rams maybe don't. And that's just me just saying things. I don't know any of that for certain. But what I do know is that the Eagles have kept a much more tightly knit group of players than the Rams have. Even though the Rams are now very much trying to go for loyalty with re-signing Jared Goff for a lot of money. In general, I think Philadelphia has the soul, They have the heart. And 32 points is nothing to sneeze at whatsoever. Their defense did great. Their offense did great. Well, their defense actually didn't do great. They gave up 27 points against the Redskins. But hey, their offense did do great. Carson Wentz showed why he is in contention for maybe MVP this year. Although Lamar Jackson kind of has that right now, doesn't he? Now, somebody who people aren't talking about because there's no reason to talk about him most of the time is Marcus Mariota of the Tennessee Titans. But what they are talking about is Baker Mayfield and the Cleveland Browns and the fact that they just decided to drop the ball. They took the football, they dropped it. It was a fumble recovery. Cleveland is Cleveland. I've said from the beginning that I don't think that they will be good at all, or very good. I think that they would be third in the AFC North, but I changed my mind. There's something that Cleveland did show in this game that the Cincinnati Bengals did not, and I have to give them credit. They showed an absolutely amazing amount of badness, and I'm shocked that the Bengals didn't, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Cleveland did not look good. Can they do better? Of course they can, and you know what? They probably will, just to hurt my feelings. But at the moment, Cleveland, just that game was so bad. I mean, you give up 43 points to the Titans. And, the Titans have some talented players. Derrick Henry's quite good. Marcus Mariota, when he's on his game, is very good. But overall, I mean, you got to be honest. Delaney Walker isn't going to win a team a championship, even if I do like him a lot. Maybe Baker Mayfield isn't going to win anybody a championship either. Now, somebody who is going to win you a championship is a little man I like to call Andy Reid, because that's his name. Now, he hasn't done it yet, but he has the soul, he has the heart. Same thing that I said for Philadelphia applies here. Man, Kansas City, that is a good team. Very, very similar to my thoughts on Los Angeles, except I think that the Chiefs, their chemistry could use a bit of work, considering that it feels like every other week somebody on the Chiefs is going through some sort of domestic violence protocol or whatever. And they picked up LaShawn McCoy, so it didn't get any better there. So maybe Andy Reid just has a bad taste in players who do good things. But I will say they do have a very good football team. And Jacksonville looked good too. I'll be honest, I was very surprised that Jacksonville looked as good as they did, especially with Nick Foles, bless his heart, he won a Super Bowl, good for him, falling to injury, and they had to bring in the rookie. The rookie is what I'm going to call him because I can't pronounce his name. But he did well too. Really unfortunate for the Jaguars to lose Nick Foles though. I really thought that the Jaguars might be a sneaky team, that they might scratch their way into the playoffs with their Jaguar claws or whatever, but for one, they're the Jaguars, so probably not. And two, they're the Jaguars, so probably not. But I will say, now that they don't have Nick Foles anymore, it's looking less and less like that 2016 team, which honestly is probably a good thing. Probably a good thing because you don't want Blake Bortles as quarterback. And that's all I'll say for that. Oh, man. Lamar Jackson. I sat him on my fantasy team. Moving on. Oh, okay, I'm kidding. Baltimore looked great. Lamar Jackson, until he gets injured, is probably one of the best players in football. One of the best. Not the best quarterback. Maybe barely scratching the top 5, but he's one of the best. And Miami looked bad. Ryan Fitzpatrick, please, if you're out there listening, I know you're an avid listener, please remember, don't retire. I don't care what kind of torture Miami's putting you through, you just can't retire. You'll make me too sad. But yeah, that was something else. Seattle, Cincinnati. I mentioned before how Cincinnati looked pretty good. As a Bengals fan, I was very surprised. And it came down to the end. Andy Dalton was about to throw a Hail Mary, and then I guess lost the football, but I disagree. It was an incomplete pass. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a Bengals supporter. I'm saying that because I legitimately, thought it was an incomplete pass. I don't think we would have been able to win the game anyway. 4 seconds left against a Seattle defense. I don't care if the Seattle defense isn't the defenses of the past. Seattle's defense has always been great. And I think it'll continue to be that way, even once everybody from those Russell Wilson teams, even when Russell Wilson retires, I think that it'll still be good. I just think that that's the way the Seattle defense is oriented. But because of that, it was especially surprising. Only 20 points for Cincinnati, but their defense looked good too. Very surprising to me that Cincinnati looked so good, even though they lost the game. Seattle really didn't look that good. Russell Wilson, he did well sometimes, but most of the time, he just kind of got lucky. He threw a few deep balls. He threw, a 44-yard touchdown to Tyler Lockett. That was almost kind of a Hail Mary on its own, and that's what won them the game. So good for Seattle, good for Cincinnati, good football all around. Now, other good football, overtime, people like that, right? Well, Indianapolis and Los Angeles Chargers went into overtime, and the Chargers won. And it was very interesting because it's sort of a thing, right? You have Indianapolis, who doesn't have Andrew Luck anymore, and you have Los Angeles that, doesn't have Melvin Gordon for the time being. But Jacoby Brissett and Austin Eckler both stepped up for their respective clubs. I think Eckler did amazing for the record. He definitely looked like a good replacement for Melvin Gordon just in general. If Melvin Gordon just decides, I don't really want to be on the Chargers anymore. Which, why would you want to do that? You have Phillip Rivers, my best friend. Good game all around, I'd say. Good game all around. Both teams actually looked great, I would say. I think Indianapolis is still the favorite to win their division, and if the Chiefs weren't there, the Chargers would be the favorite to win theirs. Moving on, let's get back to some questionable football. That would be from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, of course. Jameis Winston leading a team that still thinks that they're in playoff contention for some reason. That's Tampa Bay. Man, I remember when Tampa Bay was, good. Mike Evans was really good. Chris Godwin was, breaking out, and it was great. And Doug Martin was there, and it was great. And I thought, man, Tampa Bay is going to be good for a while, isn't it? And I was very wrong because I had faith in Jameis Winston. Man, that class was bad, wasn't it? The top 3 picks were Jameis Winston, Marcus Mariota, and Blake Bortles. That's my reaction to that whole thing. San Francisco wins. Jimmy Garoppolo did well. Man, when is Jimmy Garoppolo going to prove my theory that he's not a good quarterback? He hasn't done it yet. Everybody's saying that Jimmy Garoppolo's a good quarterback. But, he probably is, but I just have that suspicion. I have a feeling, like a lot of people do about Tom Brady, that someday he's just gonna break. Someday he's gonna be like Blake Bortles. And I know I don't want to wish that on even my worst enemy, but someday I feel it. I feel that Jimmy Garoppolo will be the next Blake Bortles. Well, he'll probably be more consistent and better, but that's my prediction. New York Giants, what's going on with their quarterback situation? Let me tell you, Eli Manning, he looked like how Eli Manning has looked for the past, 10 years? Not very good. And hey, Dallas looked really good, but then again, it was against New York, so how much can you say? Dak Prescott looked great. Ezekiel Elliott looked great. Really, everybody looked great. Amari Cooper looked great. Tony Romo probably looked great broadcasting. Jason Witten was back. He looked pretty good. He looked like Jason Witten has. No real changes in appearance either. But it was against the Giants, so I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to buy into the Cowboys being the best team ever right now, because the Giants are not the best team ever. And I would even say they're one of the worst teams, maybe even worse than like the Redskins. They have Saquon Barkley, and good for them. Hey, if the Redskins had Adrian Peterson of the Vikings era, do you think that the Redskins would be in playoff contention? And you would probably say no, which I mean is fair, because no, they wouldn't. I don't think that Adrian Peterson, even in his prime, could guide a team like the Redskins to playoffs, and I don't think Saquon Barkley is going to do that for the Giants. Hey, another overtime battle. Let's see who won this one between the Lions and the Cardinals. Well, nobody. But I will say, both teams looked pretty good for what was expected. The Lions, by most people, are looked at to be an okay team, bad team. But I've always been a Lions supporter. Get past all the heartbreak and failures and move on. That's what the Cubs did, and maybe they shouldn't have done that. Maybe be more like the Indians and just be in contention, but never break my heart. The Lions looked pretty good. Stafford actually looked great. And it was amazing. I expected, because Golden Tate was gone, that the Lions offense would just be kind of, who do we throw to? But they did well with their running backs. They found a new best friend tight end. I can't remember the last time the Lions had a very good tight end. I just legitimately can't. And I don't think I could name who the Lions tight end was for the past 7 years. Well, I probably could, but you'd have to say, oh, it was blah, blah, blah. And I'd be like, oh, yeah, it was. And then Arizona, Larry Fitzgerald still hasn't retired. Good for him. I want him to play forever. And Kyler Murray looked pretty okay. I feel like we're going to look at Kyler Murray a lot like how we looked at DeAndre Ayton. Both first-round picks, both in Arizona, and both are already being overshadowed by other people, which is very interesting to me. And it's not even that Kyler Murray's being overshadowed by another rookie. He's just being overshadowed by the Browns. And isn't that the most disgusting thing about this entire first week of the NFL? Everybody's talking about the Browns like they actually expected the Browns to be really good in the first place, which was the biggest mistake of all. And then, finally, on Sunday, we have New England and Pittsburgh. And oh my God! Pittsburgh lost! Oh man, what an extremely thrilling change in Cincinnati. Right now, the best team is Baltimore, and hey, the Bengals are only 1 game back. Haha, striking distance. But wow, Pittsburgh looked awful. New England looked great. Pittsburgh looked awful. Now, wouldn't it be fun to see Antonio Brown never play for 2 teams after playing like all of his career in Pittsburgh? Oakland Raiders legend Antonio Brown, and maybe soon to be New England Patriots legend Antonio Brown. And by legend, I of course mean infamous legend in the fact that they never played a single snap. Now that would be something else. And wouldn't it have been funny if Antonio Brown did play against the Steelers and absolutely dominated his former team? Like, what message would that send? Do you think in the post-game interview, Antonio Brown would be like, yeah, they should have got me my helmet sooner? Stupid. What a stupid controversy. We didn't even go one day without an Antonio Brown incident happening. And as I write this, this is the day that Antonio Brown is getting talked about for sexual assault, and, I don't want to get into that. All I'm saying is that the Steelers looked bad. The Patriots looked bad right now, just their image does, but their team looks great, obviously. And Antonio Brown is a weird guy. More hot takes coming in the future. And now let's go to Monday. You have Oakland and Denver. Oakland, well, they won, which is probably one of the bigger shocks. Not saying that Denver was going to be anything special, but I will say that I didn't think the Raiders would be anything special without Antonio Brown. I know they have like Montez Perfect and John Gruden, but what is that going to do? I want to say that Oakland can, rack up some more wins, but I don't think that they'll do necessarily great. I don't think that they added, aside from Antonio Brown, for, maybe a preseason game. Maybe not even. No, he didn't even play in a preseason game, did he? No, he didn't even do that. I'm sorry, I'm getting off topic. Even if Oakland still had Antonio Brown, I don't think Derek Carr is a great quarterback. To be fair, he's not a bad quarterback. He's just a quarterback. He falls into the same line as like Alex Smith, Andy Dalton. No, Alex Smith is good. What am I saying? Marcus Mariota, Jameis Winston, God forbid. Guys like that. Derek Carr's okay. He needs the pieces around him, though, which is, 100% fair. And, hey, Denver. Joe Flacco played. This is going to be one of those things, right? You have the weird images of sports stars who are known for only playing for one team, playing for somebody completely different, like, Michael Jordan in a Wizards jersey, or Scottie Pippen in a Blazers jersey, or Karl Malone in a Lakers jersey. I'm using only NBA examples, but you get what I mean. Stuff like that. I feel like that's going to be Joe Flacco in a Denver uniform. The guy who led the Ravens, 2011, legend. Playing in Denver? Wait, what? I knew they had quarterback troubles, but you got this guy? This was your best bet? Anyways, Oakland won. Whatever. Another totally uninteresting game. Not because it was even a bad game. It was just, Denver and Oakland. I'm not very interested in that matchup. But a matchup I am interested in is Houston against New Orleans. Let me tell you, I think both teams look great here, especially the Saints. I've always been a Saints supporter from day one. I love Drew Brees. Drew Brees and Phillip Rivers, I love them both. Well, Drew Brees, I love that guy. I love Drew Brees. Anyways, so New Orleans. Whoa. Wow. Won in a walk-off. Now that's a good game of football. I think that was the best game of football this week. Just happened to be on Monday night. Man, Monday night gets all the good games. They really do get all the drama-filled, great games. And Thursday night gets Green Bay and Chicago. Feel bad for the day Thursday, Everybody says, I hate Mondays, or everybody being Garfield. But where's the I hate Thursdays funny comic book character? Come on, we need one. Bring in Gramfield the talking dog, about all his problems with Thursday and how Thursday night football needs to get better. Gramfield for president 2020. Let's do it. Anyways, Houston also looked good. Deshaun Watson, I didn't really have any. I thought he was going to be like Cam Newton coming into this year, If you get what I mean. Cam Newton is a good quarterback, and he's also injury prone, and he also moves fast. That was basically my expectation for Deshaun Watson, but I will say, their wide receivers did well. They do have DeAndre Hopkins, so they get a little something there. That Will Fuller looked really good, and I was surprised that their receivers did so well. And I thought that they might lose a little something by losing Lamar Miller, but no, they just kind of focused on the passing game, which I can respect because it got them within 2 points and almost won them the game if Will Lutz didn't come in and nail, a 56-yarder? Good for that guy. New Orleans looked great. Michael Thomas just absolutely caught everything and absolutely ran all over the field and absolutely made the Texans feel sad because their defense wasn't very good. Maybe they shouldn't have traded Jadeveon Clowney, and maybe they should have just put him in at a different position, give him a change of scenery, but not really a change of scenery. Move him to running back. Yeah, he'd probably kill everybody. That'd be great. Good for him, and that'll do it for me. So that'll do it for this week's edition of the Payoff Pitch, and let me tell you, I hope you enjoyed. If you enjoyed it, make sure to look it up on YouTube, search up Payoff Pitch, Joey Olberding, in the little search bar, and I'll be there. And check out TuneIn Radio, 95.7 MRC. And with that, if you enjoyed this, make sure to check out MRC for more Payoff Pitch and so much more.